I know I say this every time. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it's been 20 days of talking about culture. I have been so blessed to have so many of my amazing friends in the world of culture and leadership and business joining me to really talk about their expertise. And today is no exception. We have Ryan Berman, the Courage King, here with us. And I'm going to turn it over to Ryan, let him introduce himself and tell you why he's so awesome, because he's one of my favorites. And I'm really excited today to talk about courage.
Chris, thanks so much for having me, man. It's great to be here. I can't believe you've done this for 3 weeks already. And I know you were asking me to make this about me, not about you, but bravo to you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ryan Berman. I am the founder of a company called Courageous. The way I usually like to sort of start this thing off is ask yourself, maybe there's a place in the business where you're stuck, where you're scared, where the business is stale, or you're playing it safe. And anywhere where one of those four is at play, my team is brought in a couple of different ways to even unlock a team, liberate a business. Sometimes we're helping companies get the tools, the framework, the actual words, and the confidence to be courageous and to lead courageously. So, Chris, often it's a courageous leadership assignment mission where we're brought into keynote or workshop or offsite. That's the culture itself. Other times, we're actually being brought on as the special forces to help our partners figure out their special and bring to life their special, which is more of a roll up your sleeves consultation side. And so there's a leadership part of the business, there's a courageous ideas part of the business, and there's a courageous reinvention part of the business. And it's honestly, it's a lot of fun being able to come into companies and help them figure out their tomorrow.
So I love the idea, and we kind of got connected somehow, some way. I think through a friend when you were doing all of your sort of courageous Zoom calls during the pandemic, and I remember there were weeks where it was exactly what I needed of like being on and having that moment to talk and to go through things and right to find that courage to talk about hard things. And admit there was some weeks where I was like, I'm so overloaded, like I couldn't even go.
Yeah.
Or I'd be on for like 10 minutes and I'm like, I need to go decompress. Like the world was so screwed up, right?
Yeah.
But that sort of knowing what I needed or didn't need, I think is important. And I kind of find like leaders are really out of tune with that, right? Of saying, geez, I need this today, and maybe I don't need it next week, right? And to sort of like taking care of themselves or listening to what they need so that then they can be great for their people. Have you found that to sort of be a true statement?
So spot on. Look, I think it's really hard to be a leader right now. Yeah, look, and let's just take the all of the news out of the equation, which should just really be rebranded the bad news. Let's just call it what it is. Just like the bad news out of the equation. If you're a leader right now, like I acknowledge how much is on your plate and you're trying to get through the day. There's a lot of fear in what you do. And on top of that, it's incredibly lonely to be that person. Like the higher up they've gone, there's not sometimes we don't trust as much as we should, and therefore you keep a lot of that stuff locked up inside. And to your point, stepping out of yourself, I call it body jumping. Jump outside of your body and kind of look back at yourself and really have the awareness to go, oh, I need to take a me day, or I need to like go find a friend and have a real conversation. And just to bridge the two worlds, right? Like the courageous action chats that we were putting on, I think a lot of people felt like you felt. It was like a carousel of about 150 people. You'd get 40 in this week and then a different 40 in. You had some groupies, like you had some people that stayed around for every single one, but it was a real place to have genuine conversations, just to go, what's going on in your life right now? Are you okay? Are you seeing it this way? Oh, that's interesting. On the East Coast, people are responding this way. Meanwhile, in London, it's happening like this. And we would actually go to somebody in London to give us the temperature check from then, from what was happening over there. So yes, as a leader, I think now more than ever, it's who are you surrounding yourself with. We know you have a job to do, but try to have some awareness of how you're being perceived by others in the organization, so you know how to give your people what they need so they can be better, or so they can heal up and then come back and do what they need to do.
So what do you think, from a perspective standpoint, that where leaders should be? Because there's sort of a trap. I mean, there's a real ability for us to say, I just need to get through this thing, right? Just get through a pandemic, just get through an insurrection, just get through this social justice thing, or this person being shot, or whatever like thing is happening right in the world. We had so many things, but now we've got the Ukraine war, now we've got the war in Israel and Gaza, and we've got all this stuff that's happening, these outside influences. We've been allegedly going to go into a recession for what, 3 years now? I mean, it's like it's coming, and yet we're still hasn't come. So from a perspective standpoint, is it surviving? Is it, just try to wait until we get to this boring time and we can finally catch up? Or is the courage part like knowing there's always going to be something, and it's how we deal with it, it's how we approach it, right? And not, I guess, not trying to wait for, it's almost like working all year round just for that 1 week of vacation is what sort of the perspective I think about, right?
I think the idea that you'll always have some adversity to deal with is real. And although we're called courageous, when I think about what are we really delivering? I'm a kind of a broken record in saying if you don't know what you stand for, you never know when to take a stand. Right. But the fog of news and business, right? Something's always falling on your lap, right? The gravity of house on fire moments in the business or in life. Change is happening whether you get a say or not. Nobody actually asked you and you don't get a vote. So I think that's the interesting thing, is that when change is happening to us, like it is right now, how you respond to that is not an act of courage. I think it's an act of resilience. I think when you are driving the change and you're taking it to the change, that is an act of courage. You're being proactive on that. And I know that sounds overwhelming. That's just another thing that you have to do. But contextually, if you just step out and go, hey, wait a minute, all of my competition is also dealing with the same things that I'm doing. They're reacting as well. Instead of being reactionary, how do we get ahead of this and take a stand on something and then be proactive on that? And I think as a leader, that's what I'm sensing and hearing from my clients who are in very different verticals, that people want to be led. They don't want to just have to react over and over and over again. And a lot of what we're being asked to react to are short-term wins. And it's putting values at stake, and it's putting like brand at stake. And we wonder why people are looking for new jobs. So I know it's a long-winded answer to the question, but that's what I'm seeing.
I remember a few times in my career, and I'm a pretty like steady person. I don't get overly excited, and I don't get super angry, and I don't get like super excited. I kind of wish I could get like super excited, but that's just my personality, kind of even, right? And there were times when the business had a problem. There was a big thing happening. The recession in 2008, 2009 is a big example. And what I realized my people wanted was for me to get excited. They wanted me to, figuratively stand there with my knight and shining armor gear on and tell them it's going to be okay, and like do this, rah thing. They were okay with the even keeled personality when it was the day to day. But and I'm not saying some people have to stand up and, yell and scream and shout through a megaphone, but your point is very, very real, that they want to be led, right? And especially as there is more going on, they need that clear communication, that clear transparency. They need to know what we're doing, where we're going. And I'll say this 500 times, probably more this year. You don't have to get it right every time. You just need to tell people, this is what I know today. This is what I think we're doing. This is where we're going. And if you're wrong and you screwed it all up, you can change your mind tomorrow and tell people why. And they're okay, but they're not okay when you don't tell them anything and you keep it all inside. And all they get is fear, right? And so I really think you get courage from knowing the truth, knowing the information, knowing where we really stand, what's really going on as best we can, so that I'm not creating my own reality, right? I'm not filling in the gaps with my own fears and anxieties and issues, because if there is knowledge to be known, this is sort of my transparency pillar from the book. If there's information that's available for people, but they don't know it, they will fill in the gaps with all of their crap, right?
Yeah, they're gonna create their own narrative because you have not provided the narrative for the business. So, look, I think it's not just clarity. I think it's consistency. So, yes, they need to hear from the leader. Even if the leader gets it wrong, to your point, and they're consistently hearing from the leader, not from the leader's people, but from the leader, and that's the first thing. And I've never, I, I'm definitely in the leadership space, but sometimes poor leaders turn leadership into cheerleadership. So I've always been and you know me well enough, Chris, to know that I am a rah-rah. I think I can get emotional about stuff, right? So I like the term, believership. I think there's a believership in a company. It's not just one leader's deal. The believership is the raft mates that are there with the leader, and their job is to make believers in the business. And you even make a believer or a fake believer, right? And fake believers don't wear a t-shirt around the office that says fake believer. They nod and smile and collect a paycheck. But if you don't fill in the blanks, they're going to create that narrative in their mind. And you nailed it. The whole premise of Courageous, when we look at our purpose statement, is to be corporate fear fighters. And there is a fear inside the organization that the company needs to address, not suppress, and then take that thing straight on. And you can't get to the courageous move without first channeling it through fear. But most companies and most leaders, they don't put in the work to address the fear, shrink down the fear. When the leader comes to the table, right? And I'm a broken record on repeaters make believers. So I love hearing you say, I'm going to say it 500 times. Like, that's a sign of a good leader. Repeaters make believers. It is incredibly annoying, probably for you, to have to say the same thing over and over again, but for it to land, to really land with people that are nervous, and there's right, if they're creating their own narratives, there is anxiousness there. You have to do that to subdue that and keep the focus for the team.
We were talking about this yesterday, on this, and who was I talking to? I just totally blanked. Oh, it was with Jenny Field. We were talking about this yesterday. We were on communication, and it was like, you have to repeat yourself. You have to say it lots of different ways in lots of different mediums, and to be remembered. And it's difficult and it's hard. But the joke was, welcome to leadership, right?
Absolutely, that's the job.
That's the job. It's your job to make sure people understand. And that means you got to say it and say it and say it. I mean, if it's important, you got to say it 3 times. I was just working with a client yesterday, and they were telling me, we feel like when we go to these meetings with our clients and we tell them all the things that we're doing, they don't remember and they're not getting it. And we're losing people because they don't really have a clear understanding of how good a job they just did for them. And I go, well, how many times did you tell them? Like, once. Like, how about we try 3 times? How about you tell them the really awesome thing you did 3 times and see if that changes things? And they already told me this morning that they did that with a client, and what a huge difference it made to repeat. And it's annoying, but do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? That's what is another thing I constantly remind new leaders of, because they're like, I shouldn't have to do that, or this not fair. And I'm like, do you want to be a good leader or do you want to be right?
Well, I also think it's easy to talk about being clear. It's harder to actually be clear.
Mm.
And my friend Colette Carlson, she says, clarity is a rarity. And isn't that the truth? It is incredibly complex to make something that's clean and simple land. And if I got lucky anywhere, Chris, it's that I had all these crazy madmen for mentors back in New York City where advertising really mattered. And I was challenged to come up with a succinct story that could be told in 3 to 30 seconds. And then when you're not there to defend that story, it could sing on its own and hum on its own. And here we are now living in this media obese world where you're not there to point at a feed when your idea comes across. I wish leaders looked at themselves as imagine you were an advertisement. Okay. Your story, your little message is going to land in the feed and you're competing with, did I take the dog out? What time do I have to be home for dinner? Uh, I forget what I have to do tomorrow. Or, oh, I have to go to work today. It's a work from work day. And we forget that you're competing for things in people's everyday lives. And as a leader, getting that clear statement and repeating it over and over again of what you say the business stands for, it's like to unlock your people is part of the leadership job.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always like to try to make sure we're talking very strategically here and big picture. And but there's some really tactical things that maybe people should think about doing. I guess we saying it 3 times or repeating yourself is a bit tactical, but what else would you suggest the average leader who might be listening to this? What's one thing they can go back and do today to really help be a better leader or to be more courageous or really to impact their culture?
So this is for starters, I would say I'd start with the values of the business. And even as I say that, Chris, I know there's a listener that's rolling their eyes, right? They're rolling their eyes right now. It's like if you are the leader of the business and your values are table stake values, or there's CYA values, or you've got 12 of them, you're going to be in trouble. It, to me, how valuable are your values? So imagine me as a business mechanic looking under the hood of your business. I would start with, hey, we said these were important, and then we're not operationalizing the behavior on the values. Uh, Core values are not eye rolls, they're how the exceptional roll. And the companies that are truly living the behaviors of the values are the companies that we know and that we love and that are getting ahead. So I'd start with what are our values? Are there three? Are there four? Are they unique? Is it time to reassess and address them? And how unique are they really? I mean, nobody that ever tried to get a job at Patagonia was surprised to learn they were something they weren't. Right? Like I think we know right before you ever got a job there what Patagonia is. And I think a lot of companies today, it's kind of like online dating. They've got their profile, they're saying a lot of things, and you hope it works out. And then the honeymoon phase ends, and you're like, oh, shoot, they told me this, but nobody's doing that with Patagonia, right? Like, it's
Right.
very clear. If you're not trying to save, environmentalism isn't important. You're probably not getting the job in the first place. So, as a leader, I think the ultimate test, it starts with the values. But, like, if someone is trying to get a job with you, do they really, really know what they're signing up for? And will they be passionate about rolling up their sleeves and doing what they do for your business? That's where I would start.
Well, and it's important because you're saying the company and the leaders need to be living and breathing these values. And your Patagonia is a great example, right? Well, there's other companies that on their dating profile, they might say they like long walks on the beach, but they're literally in Manhattan, right? So, you have to be actually living those things and breathing those things. So we often, talk about our people need to be able to articulate what is the purpose of our company maybe not the exact written out thing on a wall somewhere, but like, can they articulate in their own words? Why are we here? What are we trying to do? And making money is the result of that. That is not the reason we are here, right? There's some other purpose, some other why, if you want to go to Simon Sinek or something like that,
Yeah.
of why we're here, right? Do they understand that? And then do they understand what those values are? And have we even talked about them? Has anyone ever gone by that wall that where they're up there and actually looked at them? And are we living and breathing them? Because it's a great place to center everyone around, even if they're generically the whatever they are. Live them, right? They're valuable. That they're called values, for God's sake.
I mean, that's right. How valuable are the values, right?
Yeah.
And just to build on the why, I think it's not enough to know your why. There has to be a real rally cry in that why. Because I think when there's a rally cry in the why, then suddenly, guess what? Your people want to be there. They're excited they've got permission to bring that rally, that why to life. And I think that is the thing that I'm seeing is like leaders are missing the fact that every single person in their company is a word of mouth opportunity. And it's even working for you or against you. And I get it. I feel I feel it for leaders. They have less time to do what they need to do. The thing that got them there isn't going to keep them there. There's a lot of pressure and they're being watched by a lot of people. But they forget that if they're not inspiring their people, if their people don't want to be there, that person's going to go home and tell their best friend who's at another company, maybe even in the same category, no, 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 you don't want to come here. It's ridiculous. And yes, that is exactly the conversation that's happening. That walking advertisement is walking out of your company, and they're even saying, "I love it here," or they're saying, "It's okay," which is a mark kind of against you. Or worse, they're like actively looking for another job. And why wouldn't, as a leader, you try to create a space to motivate people, to inspire people? And I think coming back to living the values is how it starts. Now, I just ran into this statistic yesterday. It was, I think, a Media Link survey that said 45% of marketers that were surveyed believe companies are matadoring their values for short-term wins.
Mm.
Almost 50%, almost one of two is acknowledging they are asked, even through words or their feeling it, that's like, no, we need short-term wins. Performance matters now. And again, what does that do if you're not building that slow cooked relationship that you've got to like sacrifice the values of the business for wins today? Is that leadership?
Yeah. And that's why I'm such a proponent for culture. I mean, I believe in that this power of company culture, because through great culture is the only way that the business still gets what they want, which is performance and productivity and profit, and the employees still get what they want, right? Which is a great place to work and to be valued and have security and a paycheck, and to at least enjoy, or at least be able to like what they do. I mean, hopefully they love what they do, but at least not to be miserable. Because to your point, nothing made me happier than to be at a party and listen to somebody who I picked up on as a pretty intelligent person, pretty smart cookie, telling me that they hate their job and it's not a place they want to work at anymore. And I'm like, cool. And I wouldn't even tell them you should come work for me. I would say, hey, let me have you talk to, and I'd bring one of my employees over if they would happen to be at the party, right? And let them start talking. And then all I had to do the next day was follow up and say, we have an opening. Done. Right. I could pick them. I could, grab them so quickly. If you're not taking care of your people, if they don't want to work there, if you're not living your values, right, and you're taking those short-term wins, which are always available, the shortcuts are always available, but they come with a cost, right? That's always a problem.
Yeah, I always worry that, guys like you and me that value culture, like, are we just talking to ourselves? Like, how do you actually break through
Yeah.
right on the other side to a leader that like, yeah, yeah, yada yada culture. It's like, well, yeah, this is exactly the person that needs us, and they've got their culture blinders on and can't see beyond the numbers, and they wonder why they have a retention problem. Where it's like, it's not so bad. And look, there's never been more access for good people to find a new job. It's never been easier. When you and I were growing up in the business, I didn't have a social network called LinkedIn. I had the Kevin Bacon game to maybe two. It wasn't six, right? It had to work out. I had to make it
Yeah.
work with this relationship. And my early days, I call those the survival years. It was like I didn't get to decide who I worked for. It's like okay, I guess I can work for that amount of money. And I didn't get to pick my clients. And as life went on and I started to build some relationships, I moved closer to what I call the success phase. And I had survived survival. And now I'm like, okay, this thing is slowing down a little bit. I hit success. And by the way, this is not a year or two. This is like a decade, right? Like a
Yeah.
decade of
Right.
my life of grinding away. And then a decade later, I would say I got to my final S, which is soul mode, where I actually was like, like I should be designing this life where I'm doing what I love and getting paid to do it. And there's joy. And that was the path for a lot of us. Our parents didn't even have that path. They're like, keep your head down, work for the
Yeah.
watch, don't talk back to the boss, which was the advice that they gave us. Today, like in the leader of the company today, went through one of the two that I just explained. They were even like, shut up, work hard, keep your head down, good things will happen. Or I grinded it out. I finally got to success mode. I grinded it out. I finally got to soul mode. 24, 27, the kids today that are coming up in the business are like, hey, yes, I need to make money, but I have so many options at the table, and they are truly wearing their values on their sleeves. This isn't BS. They are looking for jobs that fuel their soul as much as they want to get paid. I'm talking about top talent here, right? Like the people
Yeah.
that are high performers for the business. And so I'm hoping that leaders can take those blinders off, take a step back, really ask themselves, are you designing an environment that people want to thrive in and it fuels their soul as they get to do the work they want to do?
I want to make sure people really heard what you said because I remember, and you're probably the same way. When I was, coming out of college, young, guy in the workforce, if you told me, here's this terrible job, let's just say I'm cleaning porta potties, but I'm going to give you 100 grand a year to do it, or you can make a lot of money. I'd be like, sign me up. I don't care what it is. You want me to handle like chemicals that may explode at any moment and I would die, but I'm going to get 100. I'm doing it. Right. I have to work 7 days a week for, you know, 12 hours, 18 hours a day. I'm doing it. Right. I'll grind it out. I'll work my butt off to get it done and make, and then I'm not going to do it forever, but so I can take that step up to the next thing I want to do. And when I talk to all of my kids' friends and my kids, for that matter, they're like, no way. And it's really easy to say, oh, well, they're lazy or they don't get it. But what you're talking about is that they have more options. They have a different way to navigate the world, right? And they can go and get good at something. And then they have all these choices and all these places to go. And they have the visibility to understand, is this company even aligned with me or not? And do I want to work here and their values there? So it's not about them being lazy. It's not about them, this is not the old guys saying, oh, these kids today don't know, they don't want to work hard. It's not that. It's they have choices you and I didn't have because we had like our neighbor's friend, maybe our uncle knew somebody, and like it's the people you met out on the street or while you did that job and worked your butt off, you might find another opportunity. There was no LinkedIn. There wasn't even freaking MySpace or AOL back then, right? I mean, so people need to be able to remember that it's a different world of choice for people, and we have to be better at living our values, better at the culture, better at what we're providing, or they're not coming, right? And we're going to end up with not just B players, but C and D players.
I think you'd asked like, what else What practical things can a leader do now to make sure that they're landing? And I think a lot of what I try to bring to the table is not just perspective, but awareness as a leader, right? Like, and I would say, truly ask yourself when you're having a conversation with somebody, when the conversation ends, I think there's only three different energy transfers that happen. There's a gain energy opportunity, those people that you gain energy from. I always want to be that for you, Chris, right? Like I want to be like, oh yeah, Berman, like you feel a plus charge. There's a drain energy, right? There's the drain energy. It's like the sky is falling, or like they made me feel bad about myself, or I messed up and got right, and that's a negative. And then there's a maintain energy, just people who you maintain energy from, which personally I don't think is that memorable, right? So you've got gain energy, drain energy, or a maintain of energy. And as the leader, I would almost audit, build the muscle to audit. Like when this group left, do I feel like they gained energy from me? Did I drain their energy? Or was it a maintain on energy? And often it's not like you're a cheerleader rah-rahing, because people are going to see through that shit too, right? If you're lying to them, you're going to be a drain on their energy versus go back to the top of the hour, Chris, like, hey, I might not have all the answers. I might not know all the answers. Here's what I perceive to be true. As leaders, here's where we're going as a team. What do you guys think? Do you like this plan? Right? I think there's a gain energy from that. And so I would be looking at that as a leader too. Like when people walk away from you, are we gaining energy from you? Are you draining their energy, or is it a maintain of energy?
Yeah, and if there's listen, if you're having a struggle at work, there's probably a book out there to help you. I just read Patrick Lencioni's, I think it's The Six Work Geniuses. I mean, just the whole idea of energy and knowing like which kinds of things you should be doing, right? Aligning yourself with what is your natural things that you like doing, and conversely, getting away from that stuff that's not you, right? He talks about like there's you know the creating part, there's a coming up with a great idea and coming up with how to do it, and then there's like people who actually want to like drive the last 10% of that project. I am not the last 10% of the project guy. Okay. I'm the ideation, I'm the idea guy. Let's come up with it, let's dream it, let's build it. And then I'm like, here, team, go and make it happen. And there's people on the team who will be like, awesome. You already figured it out, and all I got to do is drive it home. I'm on it. But that's energy, right? It's like what gives you energy. So I think there's a book out there probably for every problem. Speaking of books, I hope everyone will check out my new book coming out October 31st, Power of Company Culture, second edition. Make sure you grab the orange cover. The yellow one is a few years older. It's half the size and not as good, I promise. But Ryan, I really want to thank you for all your leadership, all your inspiration, the energy you give me, and for being here with me today. So I'll give you the final word, my friend.
I know it can be hard to be courageous out there, but if you feel that you're stuck or that your organization is playing it safe and you need that little bit of positive extra oomph, yeah, it's got to be you. Like if not you, if there's not self leadership happening, there ain't no leadership happening. And so take it amongst yourself to try to be that energy gain for people, help your team get unstuck. And as hard as it is out there, know the differences between being resilient and staying courageous, and try to be proactive with that courage. Final thought, again, like I said earlier, if you don't know what you stand for, you never know when to take a stand. So try to break through this clarity epidemic that we're living right now and get clear on who you are and put it into play at work. Don't just let the values sit on the wall, but live them and breathe them.
Fantastic. I will be live on Sunday with Dr. Dina Brown at 9 a.m. if anyone is interested in talking about people-centric culture and how to have an inclusive place where people want to be. And then there's a whole slew of stuff next week. So if you're interested, find my events, DM me. I'm literally probably the most annoying person on social media these days. So I'm pretty sure you've seen my posts. They're everywhere. But anyways, thanks everyone. Thank you, Ryan. And I will see everyone soon.